The issue of footballers and their nationalities is a contentious one, and it has been ever since pretty much the dawn of the international game. Lewis Monty played in both of the first two World Cup finals in 1930 and 1934, but for two different countries, Uruguay in the first and Italy in the second, emerging victorious on both occasions. Alfredo Di Stefano and Laszlo Kubala both played for three different national teams, but never played in a World Cup, despite being two of the greatest footballers to have ever lived. Then you have some slightly more amusing instances, such as that of former Premier League and Championship right-back Tyrone Mears, who received a call-up from Jamaica in 2009 because he thought his father was of Jamaican descent. Mears won his only cap for Jamaica in a friendly game against Nigeria, before it was discovered that his father was actually from Sierra Leone and that he had no links to Jamaica at all. Florent Malouda, meanwhile, played for French Guiana in the 2017 CONCACAF Gold Cup at the age of 37, despite the fact that he had been warned that he was not eligible to do so, having already won 82 caps for France, many of them having come in FIFA-sanctioned competitions. French Guiana still selected him, resulting in a 0-0 draw against Honduras, instead being awarded as a forfeit and a 3-0 win to their opponents. The world of football is littered with similar tales, whether it be that of Hal Robson-Kanu finding out that he could play for Wales because he went caravanning there and met up with his grandma, or Michel Platini coming out of retirement to win a solitary cap for Kuwait in 1988 despite having no links to Kuwait. Most likely, one suspects, in return for a fat wad of cash. It would certainly be consistent with his post-retirement involvement with FIFA and UEFA. Allegedly. I used to be quite cynical about footballers opportunistically representing countries that they had fairly tenuous links to and seemingly not much emotional connection with, but whether it's because that seems like something that just isn't really worth worrying about with a looming climate catastrophe and the growing threat of a nuclear apocalypse, or simply because I've just become a much more laid-back, chilled-out kind of guy now, these days, when I see, say, Matty Cash pulling on a Poland shirt for the first time, or tweeting in Polish, I just smile. Cash was the inspiration for today's video, the 24-year-old having accepted a call-up from Poland last month, with a congested abundance of talent all vying for that right-back spot in the England team. Cash was born in Slough, and he has only ever lived in England, but his mother was born in Poland, thus allowing him to successfully apply for a Polish passport and meet FIFA's eligibility criteria. So in today's video, I wanted to take a look at some of the strangest, weirdest, and most out-of-the-blue player-country relationships, because that seemed like a fun thing to do, and apparently that is the type of thing that I do whilst calling it a job. I ended up with a shortlist of about 50 players, but here are the 7 that I liked best. Ben Brereton. The example that will be freshest in a lot of our minds, for viewers in England and Chile at least, if you are unfamiliar with the ins and outs of Ben Brereton's new nationality, then you are in luck. Unlike some of the players in this 7, Brereton does have a clear link to the country that he represents. His mother is Chilean, and she was born in Chile. It is the circumstances of how his international call-up came about that are a little bit more unusual. Born Benjamin Anthony Brereton in Stoke-on-Trent, Brereton grew up supporting Stoke City and was devastated when he was released by the club in his teens. He then joined Nottingham Forest, where he turned professional before making a £7 million move to Blackburn Rovers in 2018. During his time at Blackburn, Football Manager researcher Marc Bircham read in the programme notes before a game that Brereton was half Chilean, and subsequently updated the Football Manager database accordingly. Chilean FM streamer at Chile Antune managed to get Brereton to switch nationalities and represent Chile in the game, with the forward having won the Under-19 Euros with England in 2017 in real life. After Brereton began banging the goals for Chile on Antune's stream, lots of Chileans began flooding the Stoke native's Instagram posts before starting a social media campaign to get him called up by the national team in real life. At the same time, Brereton hit a rich patch of form at Ewood Park, which was enough to convince Chile to actually contact the 22-year-old. Brereton has now won 8 caps for Chile, with whom he has bagged 3 goals, starring alongside the likes of Messi and Neymar and the most recent Copa America. Brereton, now goes by the name Brereton Diaz, Diaz being his mother's maiden name. And the young South American is currently enjoying an outstanding season at club level in Lancashire, sitting second in the championship scoring charts behind only Alexander Mitrovic with 13 goals from 17 league games. Lars Veldwijk. There was a slightly unusual recurring Nottingham Forest theme to my shortlist, and Matty Cash, who inspired this video, Ben Brereton and Lars Veldwijk have all played at the City Ground at some stage. Veldwijk didn't play a great deal of football for the Trees, just 17 games over 2 seasons to be precise, but he does have a bizarre international tale to rival Brereton's. Veldwijk was born in the Netherlands and made his name with Excelsior in the Eredivisie, scoring 35 goals in a single season with the club. A towering 6'5" centre-forward, Veldwijk was never likely to receive a call-up from the Netherlands following his struggles at Forest, which were followed by a move to Belgium. However, there was another country, from a different continent, that Veldwijk was eligible to represent. In 2016, when he received a phone call from the South African FA, Veldwijk had never been to South Africa, and admitted that he didn't know any of the words to the South African national anthem. Nonetheless, his father was born there, having relocated to the Netherlands when he himself was only 14 years old. Unlike Brereton, Veldwijk's international escapades haven't yet proved to be quite such a fairy tale. It took 3 years before he won his second cap for Bafana Bafana, and the last of his 7 came over 2 years ago. Age 30, Veldwijk now plays his club football in South Korea with Suwon FC, where he has been quite prolific following a less impressive stint with Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors. Tyus Browning. It has become a growing trend among nations like China, Qatar and, to a lesser extent Ukraine, to naturalise players with no prior links to the country whilst they are playing their club football there, and then to call them up to the national team. It's an issue which FIFA fears could harm the integrity of international competition, and has introduced tighter restrictions to try and guard against. In that respect, Tyus Browning is far from the most egregious example of a non-native Chinese citizen representing China. The fact that he is Scouse just makes it more of an amusing inclusion. Numerous Brazilians with zero ties to China before playing there have represented the world's most populous nation. Meanwhile, Browning does at least have some link to the Red Dragon. Browning's maternal grandfather, Yingwing Chang, hailed from the district of Xinhui in Guangdong Province, China, but relocated to Macclesfield, where he married a black British woman and became a chef. That makes Browning part Chinese, of course, and in 2019, Browning left Everton, where he was struggling to get many first-team opportunities, to join Guangzhou Evergrande of the Chinese Super League. Browning rapidly became a naturalised Chinese citizen, taking on the Chinese name Jing Guangtai, and in 2020, he won his first call-up to the Chinese national football team. His first caps wouldn't come until May of 2021 due to the outbreak of COVID-19, but Browning has since been capped 7 times this year alone. Chris Birchall. A particular favourite of mine, Chris Birchall, like Ben Brereton, was born in Staffordshire, in the market town of Stafford in fact, and yet he went on to win 44 caps representing a tropical Caribbean island, over 4,000 miles away, just off the coast of Venezuela. Yeah, I know. I've probably got some explaining to do with this one. Birchall came up through the youth ranks at Port Vale, joining the club at the age of 8, before departing to the dizzying heights of Championship football at Coventry City as a 22-year-old. During his time at Port Vale, Birchall was approached by 6'8" Wrexham and Trinidad and Tobago centre-back Dennis Lawrence, who told him that he'd heard that he had a little bit of Trini blood in him. Birchall did, sort of, not really, have some Trini blood in him, since his mother was born in the port of Spain, which is the island's capital, to British expats. Whether that makes Birchall a true Trinidadian and Tobagian is a matter of personal opinion, but the island nation certainly took the Staffordshire native into their hearts. Birchall was nicknamed "Me Mum" in the Caribbean since that was his response whenever he was asked how he was eligible to represent the Soccer Warriors, as they are known. Birchall went on to score the goal which fired Trinidad and Tobago to the 2006 World Cup, the only World Cup finals that the country has ever played in. At the finals in Germany, Trinidad and Tobago, naturally, were drawn against England in Group B, in a game where Birchall played on the right wing, in the same position that David Beckham occupied for England, and with Ashley Cole as his opposing fullback. England won the game 2-0. Birchall went on to win 44 caps for Trinidad and Tobago, and despite struggling at Coventry City and Brighton and Hove Albion in the Championship and in League One, he enjoyed 4 fruitful years playing in North America, in the MLS, before returning to Port Vale. David Regis. David Regis was not born in the United States. He never lived in the United States. His mother was not from the United States. His father wasn't from the United States. None of his grandparents were from the United States, and nor were any of his great-grandparents. And yet, Regis won 27 caps for the red, white and blue. That's more than Freddie Adu won for the USMNT, who also wasn't born in the US, come to think of it, like quite a lot of American internationals, but most have at least a family connection, or, like Adu, have lived there. Not David Regis, though, whose only tie to America was the fact that he married an American woman named Nikki, who he met over a baguette and coffee while she was studying in Strasbourg. No, I'm not just stereotyping the French there, that is actually how they met. Born in Martinique, Regis was a French citizen, but he headed off to Germany to play for Karlsruhe in 1997. Whilst he was there, Regis was approached by USMNT boss Steve Sampson about the potential of him representing the US. Aged 29, Regis rejected a call-up from France around the same time to play in a friendly game and applied to become a citizen of the United States of America. Sampson wanted Regis in his squad for the 1998 World Cup, so a process that can sometimes take years was fast-tracked under a rare provision usually reserved for the spouses of military personnel. Regis played in all 3 group games as the US lost all 3, and though Regis was among their star performers, his inclusion did cause some backlash, with complaints that it deprived actual Americans from getting that chance. Regis went on to win 27 caps for the USMNT, going to a second World Cup in 2002, though he wouldn't get on the pitch in South Korea and Japan. Now aged 52, Regis most recently served as US Mondor-Vleban's assistant manager in the Luxembourg National Division. Pat van den Hauwe. I know what you're thinking. There's no way they can top a player who had no family links to a country, never lived there, and still won 27 caps for them. Well, that is where you would be wrong. As tenuous as David Regis' connections to the United States were, his wife was American. That much, I think, is indisputable. Whereas Pat van den Hauwe not only wasn't born in Wales, had no family in Wales, and, well, just had absolutely zero connection to the country whatsoever, he didn't even have a Welsh wife. Van den Hauwe was born in Belgium, to Belgian parents, but his parents emigrated to London whilst he was still a child. Having been brought up in the United Kingdom, Van den Hauwe had British citizenship, but obviously he wasn't born in any of the 4 countries that make up the United Kingdom's famously fragile union. Home nation rules at the time specified that any British citizen who wasn't born in any part of Britain could represent any of England, Scotland, Wales, or Northern Ireland, regardless of their links to any of those 4 countries. A capable and aggressive defender who played a starring role in Howard Kendall's all-conquering Everton team during the 1980s, few nations wouldn't have wanted him in their ranks in his prime. However, Van den Hauwe rejected call-ups from both Belgium and England in favour of playing for Wales, linking up with his Toffees teammates Kevin Ratcliffe and Neville Southall on the international stage. Van den Hauwe only ever won 13 caps for Wales, later marrying Mandy Smith, the model and former wife of Rolling Stones bassist Bill Wyman. Van den Hauwe and Smith had a messy divorce, and the former Everton star had a long-term struggle with depression. Naturally, one hopes that he is in a better place now. Marc Bircham. Not only was Marc Bircham born in England, to English parents, but the midfielder cum defender was born in Wembley, the spiritual and, well, literal home of English football. Naturally then, Bircham won 17 caps for Canada. Famous for his tailor-made hairstyles at club and international level, Bircham used to dye the centre of his hair blue and white when playing for Queen's Park Rangers, and red and white when he was representing Canada. His red and white hair was just about the most Canadian thing about Bircham, given the fact that he was only eligible to represent the Canucks because one of his grandparents was born in Winnipeg. Bircham had famously never even visited Canada when he won his first cap and scored his first goal for the Canadian national team, since his international debut was played much closer to home, in Belfast, between Canada and Northern Ireland. Bircham went on to win 17 caps for the North American nation, and he is now back working on the island of Ireland, in the Republic of Ireland now, as the head coach of League of Ireland side Waterford. So that is it for today's video. There are so many other players who could have featured, whether that be Jeremy Morel, Mariano Fernandez, Norberto Briasco, Martin Boyle, Lucas Solarian, and many, many others. But of course, I have to somehow whittle it down to 7, and I thought that they were 7 fairly interesting inclusions. If you agree, feel free to hit the like button. Thank you all very much as ever for watching. You can always comment if you've anything interesting or even completely uninteresting to say, and make sure that you are subscribed and have notifications turned on for HITC Sevens. You can also find me on Twitter or Instagram by the username at HITC Sevens on both, should you feel so inclined.